So today I wanted to talk about employee value proposition, in short it's called EVP, and kind of the journey that we're on at Superbet. So it's a bit of a background to myself. I joined Superbet in July, so I'm fairly new to the organization. I've come on board to look after the entire group's sort of talent acquisition function and how we sort of attract talent into the organization to enable Superbet's ambitions to grow and expand at a rapid scale. I think it's important for me to maybe just to start off with more of an educational class around what is EVP and why do we need it, etc. What are the common elements within it, and then we'll go into sort of what is our plans for building this out. So what is the EVP? In a nutshell, it's basically the total value that an employer is offering employees in return for their work, right? So this is not only based on tangible rewards like compensation and benefits. It's also intangible rewards like what kind of projects are they working on, etc. What is the company culture like? What is the working hours with flexibility around those type of things? So all those elements are super important for attracting talent in the more recent sort of workplace, I would say. EVP is also very much interlinked with the culture and the values and the employer brand of the organization, because this all needs to be communicated at various different channels and very much in sync. Yeah, so we can move on to the next slide. That's pretty much what it is. Why do we need it? One sec. There we go. So the way we recruit has changed over the last couple of years, where we're finding it's a much more sort of candidate-driven market, which means candidates have a lot more power in their job search. They get to choose from a lot of opportunities out there. Even with sort of obviously COVID sort of easing off and the marketplace sort of opening up, we're seeing a great sort of expansion in sort of openings and job openings and requirements coming onto the market, specifically for the tech organizations. This means talent gets to pick you more so than you get to pick them. So they'll have a variety to choose from. So we need to make sure that we have a compelling sort of proposition for them. Make sure that we're attractive as an employer of choice, and we can differentiate between our competitors in our local regions, etc., in what we're offering from both a compensation point of view, but also from a culture and work point of view as well. Cool. We'll move on to the next. So five main components that build up sort of your EVP. We've broken it down there. So compensation, obviously, is super important. So that's your salaries, your pay rises, your bonuses, etc., and the fairness of the compensation across the organization. What benefits do they have? Time off, healthcare, remote working, etc. And then their career, right? So their development, their training, their coaching opportunities, promotion opportunities, making sure that this is all very much transparent and readily available for employees. And another very important part is the culture of the organization. So what is the organization's mission? What are the values and the behaviors that we need to portray for us to achieve that sort of mission? What is the atmosphere like to work within, right? And how do we collaborate? How do we work in teams as well? So I've just listed it out a little bit more detail for everything, but I won't go through it all, but it covers off the compensation, the benefits, careers, and all the intricate sort of elements within there, like dental and tuition and disability benefits, etc. It's all very much self-explanatory, but I'll leave it on here. And then the last point was obviously the company culture. There's some source of information from LinkedIn that 70% of job seekers, etc., wouldn't want to join an organization with a bad workplace culture. So it's super important that the workplace culture is identified, mapped out, etc., and aligned with the EVP, because that will be a part of the offering when attracting new employees, I would say. So I thought I could just go through, we're busy building this out for Superbet, right? So I think Superbet's had a fantastic journey, and they've got to a point where they're ready to sort of expand further across Europe and grow at exponential sort of growth. And we've been able to attract some great sort of talent. But this is more small sort of volumes, I would say. So for us to get to the next stage in our growth, we really need to scale, which means we need to scale also our culture and our VVP and build all of this out, right? So I'm going to go through sort of our plans at the moment and what we're looking to do. We've already kicked it off. It's not the finished article yet, but I'll give you a bit of insight into what we're doing, and I would definitely say watch the space for all these things to come through. So that's kind of our approach to building out sort of our culture, our EVP, and our brand. So there's a couple of sort of elements within there. One is alignment. So we want to make sure we align with the senior leadership on key opportunities, such as Superbet's culture, that drives and supports the strategy, how they role model, our leaders, how they role model the values and the behaviors that we identify and build out to deliver the culture. And then the expected output of that sort of exercises, we really want to have sort of guiding principles, right, at different levels of the organization for the culture, but also for the EVP when we're attracting individuals to say, right, these are guiding principles for you to be performing in that type of role, etc., and be a success in it. From the assessment side, so we want to look at sort of the gap analysis between what we've discussed with the senior leadership, that aspiring sort of, culture and EVP that we want to get to, but also what is reality right now. This is going to help identify the distinct differences between the different employee populations. We've got quite a diverse employee populations in different functions, right? Ranging from retail operators all the way through to corporate functions, etc., traders, but also a big sort of technology and product management function as well. It also involved in deploying phase, so sequencing the timing and the impact of all of these. And our expected outcome is to have a culture and EVP current state analysis. So what are we right now? What is our culture? What is our EVP? And then build out that gap analysis to where we need to go to. And that falls into the next stage of the development, right? So now we've identified, we've done our research, etc., but now we need to actually build out and refine our EVP. And ensure that we have these key messages that are pushing across the different populations and they land successfully, right? So people can resonate against that. Once we have all of this built out, we can actually create our own playbook. And this is around sort of guidelines and guiding principles, etc. And then the deployment side is a series of deliverables for the EVP. So how are we going to extend this message about sort of our culture, our EVP, what sort of opportunities can we send it across? So we look at the organizational values and behaviors. We want to weave this into all aspects of the organization. So whether it's sort of, management, individual contributors, etc., training, rewarding, all those type of elements. How we do this is obviously we're running off a lot of workshops with the different demographics of the organization in different regions. So that's kind of like an overview. I've broken it down into a couple of different areas, but when we start kicking off a lot of these things, we do a lot of focus groups, and we'll be using the competing values framework, right, to really identify how people are identifying the culture in the organization. And there's 4 elements there in that sort of framework. You've got collaboration, you've got create, so that's innovation. Compete, like how do we do things really fast, right? And then the control, like how dominant are we on, controlling sort of, different types of projects, programs, etc., and running to tight deadlines. So this is the framework that will go out and be integrated into a variety of different questions for all the communities within the organization. On the graph on the right-hand side there, you can see at the bottom there, that's what the framework looks like when we start doing a lot of these workshops, and we get that sort of insights coming back. And this is all about current state, right, where we are, and already identifying that. On the left-hand side there, you'll just see how we're actually going to go about doing it. So, we've had a look at empowering the HR VPs, just because we've got quite a large workforce. So we'll train the trainer for them to run these sort of workshops with their different client groups, and be able to get the reports coming back probably within sort of 4 to 6 weeks time, I'd say. Also following the assessment. So this is all about collecting the data that's coming through, everything that I've mentioned. So this is all built into the current EVP current state analysis group. And then this focuses more on the development side. So how will it be developed, delivered? You know, we want to have an interactive and agile sort of design process to be utilized. We want to pull out the key messages and designs, right, from these insights and really start building out the culture and EVP playbook. These are like key messages, you know, the link between Superbet strategy and the culture. How do we articulate that effectively at different elements within the organization and externally? We want to agree our values and our behaviors, interlinked with all the different levels of the roles. And what are the core elements for our EVP, right? So this is going back all the way to those 5 elements that make up the EVP. How do we actually factor all of those pieces in, and what do they actually look like? And then it's deployment, right? So we've identified, we've created, and now we need to deploy. So this is about really sort of, you know, how we're going to deploy the EVP playbook and workshop and align it to our HR policies and programs. So everything from whether it's recruitment, whether it's from development, whether it's from compensation, etc. And then we wanted to integrate it into sort of like our career site, job descriptions, adverts, etc. So people can get a real sense of what it's like working here at Superbet and give that sort of insights to them. And then following that, we want to look at sort of the promotional channels, right? So now we've created all the EVPs, we spoke about areas that we want to develop. How are we going to push this message out there to the audience? So this is just another graph just showing that it needs to be a part of every single element on the employee cycle, right? But then when we go into the promotional channels, so we're looking at sort of employee testimonials. So the EVP needs to be segmented, should we say, by different functions, and get sort of specific people in the organization to talk about why they work for Superbet, and linking that in with the EVP. We want to have a company and team blogs going, etc., where people can talk about the work that we're doing, company videos, and all of this can be posted on both our career sites, social media sites, etc. And it needs to be really sort of specifically focused on the demographics that is needed, right? So one size doesn't fit all. It definitely needs to be focused on the right of the channels and the right areas for that messaging. There's just top 5 promotional channels. So recruitment events, obviously being really active in that, getting that message out there. Email campaigns, so you've got a CRM or database. We want to send out the message about our organization, the things that we're doing, and employee referrals, social media, different elements there, and the career site. Cool. So I thought that's just a bit of an insight into what we're planning to do. We've come to the journey this far, I'd say, but we've got quite a big step to go forward. But yeah, welcome any questions that anybody has.
Thank you, Paul. Question?
Hi, Paul.
Hello.
I'm having a question. What was the driving force behind the need, in fact, to design or redesign a new compelling employee value proposition?
Yeah, very good question. Thank you. So I think, you know, where we got to as an organization, we were able to attract a certain amount of talent and certain volume of talent, but now we need to actually move forward and hire at scale a lot more, and also sort of raise the bar on a certain amount of elements, right? Which means, you know, people that we were sort of, you know, engaging, didn't know much about sort of, you know, the Superbet story, what we do, etc., and there wasn't much presence out there, right? So for us, it was like, right, we need to now repackage ourselves and get our message out there, and this will help attract the talent out there. So for us, just to scale and continue to recruit great talent, we need to redesign our policy.
And I have a second question. Sure. For sure that all components are important into the employee value proposition, but if you can share what will be your primary focus, in fact, into the next journey, compensation, benefits, culture, other
Yeah,
things?
so I think for us, it's we've kind of sorted out our compensation, right? We've kind of sorted out our benefits, and we're still on a bit of a journey there, but we've got quite a good structure in place there. Definitely our culture, right? So if you look at Superbet as an organization, it's obviously originated from Romania, etc. So it's got a good brand presence there. But as soon as you start going into other countries, the awareness drops down, right? But also we've acquired a few organizations as well, so they'll have their own different types of cultures. So I think for us, it's really important to really identify what is our global culture, right? As an organization, really identify that. So that's a key priority for us right now, and that's going to be underpinning the EVP proposition.
Thank you very much.
Paul, we have one question in online. Have you analyzed the status of EVP before making the strategy for the future? How did you connect the profile of the employee you are seeking with the main directions of development regarding EVP?
Yeah, so I think that's a good question. That's what we're in the process of. We haven't built out the whole EVP strategy because we need to figure out what is our culture first. So we're running these workshops, and how we've segmented the workshops is we looked at each of our different functions and regions, right? So we make sure that we have a group of minimum 6 people with each of those sort of workshops. And I think in total we're doing about I think it's about 10% of the workforce that we're looking at sort of running these workshops. So we've got a good idea from different regions, different functions. We've tried to segment it out by sort of, age groups or generations as well, because there is a bit of a different perception as well. So we're busy mapping this out. Once we collect all that information, we will have a look at sort of our competitors in those different regions. What are they offering, etc. Then we'll also look at work with our leadership team to understand where do we want to go to in the future, what are the behaviors and the councils we need to do that. And then it's kind of like interlinking all of those 3 things together to build out the EVP strategy.
Thank you very much, Paul.
No problem.